Desert Diaries. Hello. Arizona calling, and warning this week. I'm a bit pensive. Just a bit pensive. It's just another week that has flown by. How is it nearly mid-February 2021? It seems 5 minutes since we arrived here in Arizona, let alone since you and I last spoke. I felt a bit out of sorts at times this week. Out of sorts about being here, about work, about life, mainly about the future. Remember the kerfuffle we went through trying to buy a car 20-odd months ago? We didn't have any credit to get financing, despite being grown-ups in our 40s. It just didn't count our credit history in England. We got offered ridiculous deals at any of the car showrooms we went to, like, $10,000 deposit and then $750 a month to finance the car. No, not a Porsche or Lamborghini. We're talking like a run-of-the-mill family saloon. And then when we finally found a dealership who would approve financing, they gave us the car, we drove away, and then found that the specific work visa I'm on, called an O1 visa, it wasn't on the online form. It was literally a case of, computer says no. There wasn't a box they could tick. So we had to give the cars back and start all over again. And it was such a big old drama. But the reason I'm reminding you of that story is that this week, the car dealership called to say, hey, we're nearly 2 years on. How do you fancy an upgrade? How do you fancy a trade-in? And all those things that car dealerships do as a matter of course, and you'd ordinarily take no notice. Except their call actually brought up quite a lot of feelings. Blimey. We've been here nearly 2 years. Blimey. That means that a year next month, March 2022, both of our work visas expire. So in terms of the car, well, actually, even if we wanted to, we couldn't upgrade because we won't officially be in the country long enough to cover off any loan that we may be offered. But of course, this isn't really about the car. It's about thinking about the future and the present and the past, I guess, and that's brought up quite a lot of feelings. The last 4 years have meant that the USA has not been a very welcoming place for immigrants. The people of some countries, of course, have been targeted much more than others, but there have been unprecedented refusals of permanent resident visas in general, and even with the new president now in the White House, it is going to be months before anything slowly begins to change. Speaking to a lawyer, the backlog at the moment is running about a year. A year. I've never been an immigrant before. Aside for a year in Australia in my teens where I lived and worked, but I knew I was coming back to England to go to university. I've always lived and worked in the country of my birth, England. And you have enough to worry about in terms of finding a job, keeping a job, finding a place to live and schools for the girls and doctors and all that jazz without ever having to also think, but will I even be in this country in a year? Will it be possible for me to stay in this country in a year? It's something we've talked about as a family, of course, but ultimately we're in the hands of the USCIS, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. It is super expensive and really time-consuming to apply for a green card. You can do it through marriage, of course, which has its own challenges, not something we could do, or through a permanent employer. That, again, takes years. But ultimately, you kind of have to roll the dice and bet on yourself. And there's no saying if you'll be approved, no matter what your credentials are. As I said, it's a strange feeling to think, I don't actually have any control over where I'm going to be living in a year. And this week, that's just been on my mind a bit. It's crossed my mind a few times. Should we come back to England? We haven't got a house, neither of us have got a job, but in a way, that means we could also think maybe of moving somewhere else. Again, these are fleeting thoughts, but Canada looks really nice. We could drive there and have a look. Oh, no, we can't do that, of course. Maybe when the borders are open again. And, well, that's another thing that's been on my mind this week. We've been here in the US 21 months. 21 months. So far, we've had one visit from my dad, one from my in-laws. That's it. No friends, no ex-colleagues, no neighbours, all of whom were excitedly planning trips before everything locked down. I know that this virus has kept families and friends apart all over the world, and we're not unique, but do you know what? It's also okay just to sit in your feelings for a minute and say, I do feel disappointed. We were so excited about sharing our adventure with our friends and our family, hosting them in our new city, taking them exploring. And instead, we've spent the last nigh on a year working from home, in another country, away from even the handful of friends we had a chance to make before all of this happened. This isn't really the way we wanted it to be. But I do also think, man alive, what if all this had happened just as we were due to come? We'd quit our jobs, rented our house out. And then what? I have had people get in touch with me at Sam Walker Radio on Instagram who listen to the podcast, who were due to move here to Phoenix in April last year and are still waiting in England. Lives on hold. So, really, I know we've got a lot to be grateful for. I do just adore it here. Even with all the restrictions, hiking up my mountain or trolling through the desert as I did for 6 miles last Sunday morning with my friend Jeannie and our dogs, I love it. Right now, I don't want to be anywhere else. I do just wish people could come and share it a bit with me and that we could travel around this country a little bit more than we're able to. That was the plan. And there's a niggle. That voice on my shoulder. You've got a year left. What if this is it? What if the big adventure as you imagined it doesn't ever play out? You come here, you have a few months of madness, let's face it, good and bad, 18 months then of them working from home and not seeing family, and then you leave. Well, I'm not ready for that. But then, that might not be our choice to make. It's a strange feeling. I'll see you in the desert.